Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world who are here sharing their expertise and wisdom so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Schalk, co-founder of HLH Growth Solutions, where we help businesses grow using outside the box visibility and automation strategies. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. So glad you're here for today's show. You're in for a real treat. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my guest, Dr. Sage Breslin with Sage Wisdom Institute. So welcome, Dr. Breslin, to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Love being here.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in. So can you share with us a little bit about yourself, about Sage Wisdom Institute, and your role within it?
Sure. You know, every time I get asked that question, I never know where to begin, but I'm Dr. Sage Breslin. I have been a transformation psychologist and coach for about 35 years now. I am the founder and CEO of Sage Wisdom Institute and also the Rose System, which is our newest program that is, finally got legs to rock and roll and really to reach out and improve the lives of professional women.
So what does it mean when you say psychology? What did you share? Psychology?
I'm a transformation psychologist.
Transformation coaching.
And coach, okay. Yeah. It just means that I specialize in people who want to get unstuck and rise above where they are. That's sort of the nature of transformation. For me, real transformation in business comes from transformation within a person. And I would say we specialize in the deep dives that sort of loosen up all the gack below the surface that can sometimes invisibly keep us stuck. So, yeah.
So you work at the intersection of psychology and performance. What's the biggest blind spot leaders have about human behavior when trying to move through their process of whatever they're moving through, their business, personal journey?
Biggest blind spot, for a lot of the women that I work with, they're old soul women. There is, they've been referred to that. They've maybe referenced themselves that way for a long time. And I'm not sure they even realize how powerful it is in their business world.
Okay.
It can also be a little bit of not a weakness, but an area where people can sort of have pitfalls. For old soul women, we're here to protect, to serve, to heal, and uplift others. And we often see the best in people. So when you're around people who are extra good at manipulating, like narcissists and sociopaths, which, they're all around us because they're great at making it look good. When you get around that, unfortunately, what you feel is their need. And the mission to heal and uplift people kicks in, and you give, and you give, and you give, and you give until there's nothing left.
Right.
So it's not something that leaders think about. Most leaders are pretty confident. They see themselves as people who are clear and concise and can see, what's happening and can see through, most of the ruses. But unfortunately, for folks with narcissism, like their whole lives depend on manipulating others. So they're really expert at it. Yeah. And oftentimes we don't see that. And once we miss that, that allows them to hook into us pretty strong, pretty easily. So, and then we get disempowered, which can sink the whole team.
Yeah. And I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because this is something I've been through personally, and never, like, everybody else saw it. I didn't see it. And looking back, hindsight's 2020, I'm like, how did I even miss that? Sure. And it was debilitating when it actually ended, and when I realized what I had been involved with. So I can imagine for the women that you work with, that it's a shock that they're even on that side of it, because how did they not see the signs? Right. Yes. So is that something that you help them navigate and move through?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It kind of goes beyond shock and right into shame. Which becomes even more disabling, because then
embarrassment,
guilt if your team or your family or your community has also then been sort of led into that. Sometimes these people are really, what's a great word? I mean, shysters, they're really con people. They get in and they can get people investing in them, not just emotionally, but sometimes financially. And the next thing you know, you and maybe half your family have lost your life savings. Now, those are probably the rarer clients who come to me, but I would tell you, like, one good narcissist can sink a whole team. They can sink a company.
Wow.
For people in leadership roles, once they get in, they deplete the leader, they take over in their own way. They don't have to have the title to ruin what's going on in the company. So, when we're looking in business issues, these things can just trickle down very quickly. When we're looking inside families, especially families where there's children involved, that can have a devastating impact, on everyone. But
Mm.
even if what you are is a highly educated, highly trained professional woman who's rocked her world and been very high achieving, you have one toxic relationship and it can knock you down and out. And if other people are relying on you in business or even to show up and lead your own podcast, for God's sakes, the next thing you know, it's very difficult to be that confident woman who leads and assists others. So it's definitely a blind spot that we have, and it's one of those ones we can't overlook. Knocking out all of the convenient lies that we're fed when we get hooked with somebody like this is the first step to not just getting out of the relationship, but getting out of the mindset and getting out of that not enough, just everything that has to do with not enough, because that is a narcissist's dream, is to subordinate you. And so, gaslighting is all about making you believe you're not enough, you're not doing it right, you're never going to do enough, you are the problem, right? And you hear that enough and you begin to believe it.
Mm.
And when you begin to believe it, if you're not able to exit at that point in time, you can develop Stockholm syndrome. And then
Mm.
you're really in a position where you no longer know what the truth is and you don't really remember who you are. And, narcissists will clear the deck. They'll make sure you're isolated from all your friends and family, all your supporters. And the next thing you know, you're alone out there with somebody at the helm of your ship that isn't you. And that can be really a nightmare.
Yeah. So do you work with women on, because you said something that got me thinking, this isn't only in interpersonal relationships one-on-one.
Right.
There's narcissists that show up in our workplace too, because you said they can take down a company. Do you work with women on both sides, people that they actually that they work with, that they've finally seen that this person who they are, and also in their interpersonal, or do you focus
Yes.
more on one than the other?
I would say really both. And one of the reasons for that is oftentimes if somebody has been depleted in their home environment, in their more intimate relationship environment, they become depleted in the workforce. They become less and less capable for seeing others for who they are. So I have a client who unfortunately was married to a narcissist and also the head of her company. And she inadvertently hired a narcissist, not at her same level, but at a mid level, just didn't recognize the signs. I think, what she said was he felt very familiar and that felt good
No,
to her,
right.
which
I
is
that.
again, I mean, when these narcissists come for us in the dating realm, we feel like we've known them our whole lives. They
I
feel
know
like our
exactly what you
soulmate.
say. It's like they make you feel like you're the queen of the world, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, this client inadvertently hired this person, and this person just wreaked havoc. And it wasn't until she was able to get out of the marriage that she was finally able to begin course correcting internally, so that at work she was able to finally spot it wasn't just him that she'd hired.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she's like, whoa, x-ray vision. Oh my my God, I got a clean house here. And, the company was, let's just say, it vastly improved what
Yes, it was
these
a
people worked
massive
on.
purge. There's a
It
massive
was.
purge that happened in every
Yeah.
area of her life. And I can imagine after she moved through just the cleanup and that's tough.
Yes.
I'm sure there was like a lot of relief that came with it on the other
Yeah.
side. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I'm so happy for her. And I was just thinking, I'm like, this would be such a good thing to get in front of, that for
Yeah.
women leaders, because like you said, you're in the cleanup phase with her. It would be wonderful. Like, how can women, are you out there? I'm sure you are, but how can women like learn these skills? Because they don't teach it in school how to hire people, right? And for women leaders, this is really important thing to be aware of and to know. Or if you have someone that's doing the hiring for you, that this should be
Yeah.
something that they should keep their eye out, because they
Yeah.
do come in as really knowing their stuff and really schmoozing and being a charmer. And,
Yeah.
I can see how anybody would think that everything looks great on paper and their personality is a perfect match for the company, especially if they're aligned. They say they're aligned, right? They say they're
Right.
aligned with the goals and the and where the company wants to go. What are some things for those people listening that are like, whether I'm a man or a woman, I'm
Right.
hiring, like I'm looking to grow my team. What are the things that they should be looking out for
Yeah.
in someone that may be coming for looking for a job, and they can see in front of it that maybe this is not the right person?
Yeah. It's interesting. The how to spot a narcissist is a very frequent question that I get, especially in social media. And if the narcissist is worth his or her salt, you won't spot them. That they're that manipulative. So I would always caution people that when they're doing an interview and they feel like it's absolutely a perfect fit, I would just take a breath and I would encourage doing all the things we don't do when it's a perfect fit. Funny enough, we don't follow our own protocols. We so trust that feeling inside that this is going to be great that we don't check every reference and we don't ask the kinds of questions that we really need to know the answers to. So, for instance, checking not just the last reference, but the last three references. And we want to know exactly who they worked for, who they reported to, but we really want to know their 360, right? Because that will probably be the reason they left the job or fired. They may say they resigned to manage family matters or take care of a sick relative. And, that might just be the cover story for they've been fired from every job they've ever had because they wreak havoc, or they say that they're this kind of person, but are clearly not equipped to do the job well. And even if that just means that they're not great with any of the other staff, or team members. So I would always say if something feels too good to be true, just ensure that it is not, too good to be true. Checking references is really important because it is one way that you can suss out people who have not been a good fit elsewhere. Here's the other thing that people just don't do when it feels like a great fit. They don't take that resume or CV and check out all these things. Like if somebody says they graduated from Harvard, this is relatively easy to call the registrar and say, I have this person. I'm wondering if I can just verify that credential. That's an easy phone call. It's one that we probably don't do 95% of the time.
Mhm.
I worked with a woman married to a narcissist. She didn't realize her life was going down the tubes. He was, let me use the word, posing as a doctor.
Really?
A graduate of a very fine institution, by the way, and turns out not an MD at all, and fleeced dozens of people, dozens of people, and ended up, nearly taking her out and all their finances, had to sell the house, get divorced, yada, yada, yada. And that has nothing to do with what he did with the multiple companies that he was hired to work for, like
Oh,
in the C-suite as a doctor representing them. So that's just something that if somebody had made one phone call
One person making one phone call,
Yes.
and nobody did it along the way.
Nope.
Well,
And
you
probably
would,
hadn't.
yeah, you would think that somebody wouldn't, you'd be like, nobody's going to lie about that, right? Like you really need to know your stuff to do that, because none
Yeah.
of us would do that. We'd be too
Right.
nervous and
Right.
scared that we wouldn't make it past day one, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece is, many people, when it feels like a great fit, they don't bring the person back a second time.
Mm.
Just feels like a good fit and they make an offer. So I'd say there's value in a second interview, not because it's going to, unearth something incredible, and great about them. What it may do is just give you a second snapshot if they're a little off their game on the second day, or if they try to start working you on that second day. You can, if you feel great about it, say, we're really considering bringing you in. Um, we want to make a great offer, but we'd love to have you back to meet the rest of the team. Um, Bring them into an environment where you've got more eyes and ears. Put them in a little bit more stressful situation and see how they perform in that interview. And oftentimes what we see is if they're not great at manipulating, they'll try to work somebody, or they'll try to work you, or they'll become, what we would call arrogant. They'll try to get their opinion or their ideas up and over someone else. And, in some situations, that's what we want. We're looking for the go-getter. We're looking for somebody who has a fresh pair of eyes. But that behavior can also be indicative of narcissistic behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely seen that. And I love that you said that, bring them in and meet the team. I was working with a company, and it was right through after my divorce. So it was going to be part-time. My mom had worked there. So I was able to get in very easily. But the owner, the company, the president, he brought me in and I got to meet the team. And we got to talk and I got to ask questions because he wanted to make sure that I was comfortable and also that that we understood what the roles were and everything. And I loved it. And I think that's a great idea. More companies should do that. It helps the team feel like they're part of the process. And it
Yeah.
helps a new person also get a feel for who they're going to be working with to see
Yeah.
if it's a fit for them as well,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
ask the questions that they want to ask that they may not have asked the owner or the president. They can
Right.
ask the people that are on the team.
Right, absolutely. And of course, an intimate relationship, narcissists say things like, I can't believe I found you. I feel like you have everything it takes to become the love of my life. And at this point in time, you want that person to meet the team, male or female, right? So you say something like, I'd love for you to meet my friends, or I'd love for you to meet my family. And a narcissist will say something, if it's early on, like, I just want to have you all to myself. I can't bear to bring in anybody else right now. I just want to spend all my time with you.
Other people will see it. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And again, especially if you're an old soul, you likely have other old souls around you, whether as friends or family members. And their little sirens will go off like, huh, what's going on here? And, or maybe you have a friend who's been through the same thing and, already gotten out of that kind of relationship. And, if she or he is in the clear and has really done the work, their sirens will immediately go off and they will take you aside and say, so no. Get rid of him as quickly as you can. He's about to take you to the cleaners. And if you can be trusting of your friends and family and the supporters you have around you, that can make all the difference in the world. It can save you a whole lot of grief.
Yeah, and they'll say things like, "I just loved your energy," and because they feel they can feel they know who's also empaths, all of that.
Oh, yeah.
They've been doing this for a while.
Yes.
But
And,
yeah,
we are high octane fuel. If they're going to feed on our energy, they want to make sure it's the best you can get.
yeah.
And, yeah, so they are going to love your energy, looking at you with beady eyes like, where can I sink my teeth into my energy vampire?
So this is such a great conversation for businesses, and I never really thought this could ever be was really an important conversation. So
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to have you here and shining the light on how important it is to really understand who you're bringing into your company culture, we talked about culture, but never really dove into culture around narcissism too,
Yeah.
and different personality disorders and traits and things like that. So, and I know we could talk for 4 hours about this and probably still
Yeah.
never scratch the surface. So we talked about when people are hiring, what to look for. And I love that you said, like, if you think it's a perfect fit, take a beat, right?
Yeah.
Take a step back and go, okay, let me still go through your processes. Don't ever skip any processes that you would normally go through, because we can, people tell us all the time, trust your gut knew, right? And many times with narcissists, your gut doesn't see it, right? There, because you just get all those and everything. And you're like, oh my gosh, how lucky am I? The universe brought me this amazing human,
Yeah.
finally, whether it's for your personal life or your business. So really taking that step back, staying the course on, I'm still going to move through the chain of command, the process of doing this, letting them meet the rest of the team. Same thing in your personal life, letting them meet your friends and family, in putting your foot down on it. Like, this
Yeah.
is, if we're going to move forward, then you get to meet my crew, a team.
Right.
Yeah. And then if they don't want to, then your team.
That is a red flag.
Yeah, a huge red flag, a waving red flag. What does unaddressed stress or trauma at the leadership level show up inside an organization's performance, or how does it show up in an organization's performance?
Sure.
When they've reached this level, they realize they've got, oh, I've got a person like this on my team. How is it affecting the performance?
Like the leaders, like the CEOs, before, like whoever's hired or sort of in their midst, or even yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say that when a narcissist is working you, he or she has to disable you, right? That's the only way they can continue feeding. So gaslighting is a big portion of that. But there's also something to sort of the confabulation of gaslighting. It's to disturb your sense of truth. It's disturbs your inner knowing, as you said. It is to put you off your game. And I don't know if you've ever been in a room where a lot of people are talking, multiple conversations, and it can feel confusing, like rattling, where your brain doesn't quite know which thing to capture. And it'll try. I mean, and especially if you're really good at listening, it'll try. And you'll, at some point in time, think like, well, I should just listen to this one conversation because all of that noise is making me crazy. Well, this is how it works. They really do try to confound and confuse so that you are ungrounded. You become less and less clear. Your focus goes off. Your ability to concentrate goes off. Your sleep becomes disturbed because all of this crazy stuff that's happening, which you may not even quite realize what's happening in the beginning, you don't address it during the day, right? It's all happening and you're kind of like, why am I so uncomfortable? Why am I stressed? Why am I feeling anxious? There's nothing to be anxious about. Then you try to go to sleep, and it's either going to be bad dreams or very interrupted or non-restorative sleep. But the more tired you get, the less capable you are, the less clear, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of the beginning of how people really fall off their edge, feel like they've lost their mojo, lose their confidence because I mean, and I don't know if you've had children, but I had 5 kids, and every single time I was pregnant, I got baby brain. And when I entered a marriage with a narcissist, I can tell you, it felt like I had baby brain all the
All
time.
the time.
And it was, I was embarrassed about that. I felt like, wait a minute, I am sharp, I'm clear. Like, what the heck? How come I can't remember things? How come that report was late? How come I'm having a hard time getting all my team on the same page? Well, if you are ungrounded, all of those things are going to be difficult. And the other thing about having the person meet your team or friends and family, when you have supporters around you, like really good people, they're going to say, what is going on with you? Check yourself. What's happening? Get some resources, get some help. It's one of the things we say about this process. You can't do this alone. You cannot do this for yourself. You can think you can, but you're not getting out on your own and you're not getting clear on your own because you're not going to know where to start. And you need somebody holding space for you at the very least. So as you notice that level of stress, as you notice the shame, the embarrassment, again, that feeling of baby brain, the confounding effect, even feeling confused in an environment that you created
Right.
should be, a really big red flag that something is going on that you're not consciously aware of.
Yeah. And be gentle with yourself because like you said, we created it and we can get out of it and we're strong enough to, right? And also be gentle with yourself with the shame and the guilt and oh my gosh, how could I do that? I'm smarter than this. And I have children and all of
Yeah.
that. Or
Yeah,
even
I think it's
with your work environment with your team. I'm sure
yeah,
that leaders that bring these people in too could feel shame around it because they had amazing team. And now this person has disrupted that environment.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the things I just love to share with people is this. Narcissists are excellent at manipulation. They are experts. You will never be an expert at manipulation like that narcissist. If you're a healthy human, especially if you're an old soul, you're never going to be at their level when it comes to manipulation. So when you're on the other side and you're feeling some shame or embarrassment about getting worked over, getting duped, it's really important to remember buy an expert. You got to buy an expert. You
And
know,
there's nothing wrong with you.
no, there's
Because
nothing wrong
they
with
make
you.
you feel like that, whether it's a work environment or a personal life, and there is
Absolutely.
nothing wrong with you. They needed you to think that in order to keep going with what they're doing. And like you said, you're never going to be right. And
No.
that's one thing I think women need to hear. You're never going to be right.
Yeah.
We can second guess until the cows come home, right? That's as women, we can do that. And I'm sure men can too, but I can only speak about women. We can second guess. We can go, what if I just did this? Or what if I showed up differently? Or what if? And at the end of the day, it's never going to be. You can
Right.
never do enough. You can never be good enough. You never will be. And it's better to just release it and find somebody that does think you hung the moon because you do
Absolutely.
hang the moon and somebody will think that if you allow
Yeah.
them the space to come in
Yeah.
and let you see that.
Right. Right. That's, one of the things, another giveaway, that I really try to land home is if you are feeling that way, if you're confused about your own truth, if you don't remember what your values were before this person, um, go out and call somebody who does remember you before. Look
Mm-hmm.
at pictures of yourself before. Read journals of who you were before. Look at your CV or your Vita, like your resume, like because that information of who you were before is really important to realize it's not you. It's not your fault. This is all confabulated by the narcissist. It's just part of their strategy. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have anything to do with you.
Yeah. I'd like to pivot a little bit and talk about your business, like as you've started. So can you share with us, I'm guessing I know why, but can you share with us why, how you got started doing what you're doing, helping women leaders?
Sure. I may have mentioned it a little bit before. I mean, I have a great pedigree. I, have done a lot. I've been in business 35 years, but the reality is that I also have a pretty extensive trauma history, and that really made me susceptible to getting worked over. Been married more than once. And let me just say that I am a frequent flyer when it comes to toxic relationships. And it wasn't until I was, you know, more than 10 years into my marriage that I realized that something was really off. I mean, I knew things about him, but I didn't realize how much damage was happening, not
Mm,
just to me, to my children, to my career. My finances were knocked to the ground. I didn't even realize because I hadn't been looking at the accounts because I was spending all of my time trying to meet his every need. And it I finally had kind of an epiphany because I was in a situation and I thought that the only way that I could make him stop working me was to end my life. And
Wow.
thankfully, I was able to get that epiphany before taking action. But let's just say right on the brink, right on the brink. And that was my aha moment where I said, I've got to get out as quickly as possible. But, I got the divorce filed. I couldn't get him out of the house. Took me 2.5 years to get him out of the house.
Wow.
And, when I finally did that, I felt this incredible relief. I started selling programs again. I started speaking again. Life opened up. My children were happier. I felt better. My friends started to come back because he'd gotten rid of all of them. So I didn't have supporters around me.
Right.
And it was right about that time I was diagnosed with bone marrow cancer. And I thought to myself, what the heck? wait, God, I've just gotten out of this.
Let him go. Right. I released it.
Right. But the reality is, the longer you stay in these kinds of environments, they don't just break you down emotionally. They don't just break you down financially, they can break you down physically. And
Mm.
it was during the cancer journey that I had this incredible meditation that really opened my eyes to something I had been using with clients, but not with myself. And it took a twist. It took a twist from just the regular kind of traditional tools that we use in psychotherapy. And it really allowed me to embrace spirituality and, my soul. And I did, soul retrieval. And I really had to acknowledge that every single time I was traumatized, I left a part of myself back there. And so by really searching and pulling back all the parts of myself into my core, I was really able to step into my queen. And that may sound funny, but sovereignty is something at the bottom, at the very foundation of personal power. So if we want to lead a family, a community, or a company, we
Mm.
have to be able to step into that sovereignty, that the awareness that we have a soul in the driver's seat, buckled in tightly, and that's going to take us further than mindfulness or mindset. It really takes all of those things.
Yeah. Wow.
Once I invested in sort of following my own lead, I started involving, those kinds of practices with my clients, and I started seeing much greater progress. And it was at that point in time where during a meditation, I just heard this crystal clear, like, pivot, not hugely away from what I was doing, but do this full time. Offer these programs in a way that they're replicatable, that they're easy to tailor to each woman and her circumstance, and help women leaders rise, because we are in a time of our lives here that we need old soul women at the throne. We need them in power to
Yeah.
clean up things and get us back on the right footing. So I've been doing that ever since. And, work doesn't feel like work to me. Work just feels like a joyful mission.
Well, you glow and radiate. So I am so thankful you're doing the work that you are meant to do. And I'm sorry you had to go through the journey that you did in order to get here. And I know that you're helping a lot of women because, in spite of him and because of what you've been through in your journey. So thank you for being here and sharing it. And I'm glad you're healing and you're doing the work that to support other women in it, because it's hard. It's hard when you're going through it. It's hard moving through the other side. And there's points where you look back and you still still
Yeah.
wonder, what was I thinking? How did I get there? And today's a new day. Tomorrow's another day. And I get to keep going forward. But I love that you have these programs that can support women with you and also on their own, because some women need different things. And they're great reminders for because when we are in those moments, when we have those moments where we're going, oh my gosh, I've had great months, right? I'm progressing, I'm moving through, and then all of a sudden a memory will show up. And
Yeah.
it'll be like, oh my gosh, put you back there. So you have these tools that you're giving these women a toolbox they can go
Yeah.
into to support them. In regards to your business and now pivoting, right?
Yeah.
You didn't go completely pivot, but you pivoted. How are your clients finding you? How are you finding your clients? How are you getting out there as far as visibility, marketing? What's been working for you?
Yeah, I would say, I was a best kept secret for a long time, and I realized I had to become more visible. I also had to become more human. I started to share my story much more generously in a way that people could relate to me and get to know me better for what I do, and how I show up in the world. I probably have used LinkedIn more than any other platform, although, I mean, you can check my social media, I'm all over, but LinkedIn is a place where women in leadership, you know, are. And I had hoped that they would just, once they heard the story, they'd say, oh my gosh, me too, let me get some help. What I realized, though, is that the level of shame and embarrassment that women in leadership have around this particular subject is really high. So it wasn't just a matter of, oh, just put it out there. It was multiple conversations with each person. So I could meet people and share a little bit about what I have to offer, but it wasn't until I could offer several complimentary appointments for them to get to know me better, for them to show up and ask questions, and finally feel entrusting enough of me to share some of their own story and to begin to see that it wasn't their fault, that they couldn't do it alone, and that they really needed to be able to surrender and release all this stuff so that they could move forward and reconfigure.
Yeah. There's certain parts of where we are, I think, when we move through this process of a narcissist, of moving from a narcissist, is that um, it's hard to say me too. I've been there too. Yeah, it happened to me. And that's part of where it's like, because in social media, we could say like, drop a comment or shoot me a
Right.
DM. And they're like, I don't want anybody knowing.
Yeah.
I'm not dropping a comment because,
Yeah.
Jennifer's
Right.
over there. She's on this page too. And she knows me and I'm her leader. I'm her boss.
Yeah.
How can I admit that I was taken in by a narcissist? So I can completely see how with what you do, it's these women, like for you, just think about how long it took for you to share your story.
Yes.
And now that you're so far on the other side of the journey and in the healing process, you're like, okay, yeah, this is me. And it takes a while for us to get there. And
Yeah.
many of the women that come to you aren't there. That's why they need you. So yeah, I can see. So what has been okay? So that was a challenge for you. But
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you your challenges. Have you had any? What are some of maybe another challenge that you faced when starting and like when you pivot? You've been in business for 35 years. This is not
Yeah.
your rodeo with business, but when you decided to move into this direction, what have been some of your biggest challenges, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. I have a colleague that I work with, and we could post great content, and she would have thousands of views and comments, and mine weren't happening. Like, I mean, the people who knew me and liked me, of course, would, follow along, but I wasn't getting the same traction. And at first I thought, oh, she's hired a company, to do this for her. And I asked her, what are you doing? And she said, well, every day I spend an hour on LinkedIn and I read people's posts and I comment on them and I post my own and I try to ensure my content's good. And after a while, I got traction. So I thought, okay, that's cool. Let me do that more. I think it was probably a little bit more helpful. But what I realized for myself was that many of my posts and videos took I mean, I storytell for a living, right? I mean, that's kind of what I do. And that it took this narrative approach that wasn't engaging others to take action. And that was something really different between how I would post and how she would post.
Mm.
And that has really been an interesting journey because I mean, I write books, I write articles, and that is all great. And, people love what they're reading. But unless you can engage people to take action, your business doesn't grow. And it's
Right.
not just about landing on people's pain points or, you know, because then people just feel bad. They still need to take action. And so learning how to sort of alter my messaging and learning, I mean, did a thorough evaluation to ensure that what I was offering was what was needed. And that was something that, I can say in the past, maybe I offered programs I wanted to offer rather than what was actually needed.
Mhm.
So, that changed over time as well.
Yeah, so many good things you just said because I was a business coach for female entrepreneurs. So you've said everything I used to share with them. It's one comparisonitis. We can do that, and which we all do and have all done, and probably will continue to do or do again. But at the same time, it's good to learn from those who are doing it and succeeding at it. Success leaves clues. So it's a matter of, okay, what am I doing? Why aren't I getting this? My content's good. At least we think it is, right? We think our content's good. Our content's good. And a key thing is don't always lean into the pain points because
Right.
people don't want to be stuck in misery. They want
Right.
to know what it looks like on the other side of it, right? So
Yeah.
talking about the transformation, sharing the testimonials, sharing the other side of what life can look like, the family and the friends coming back in, social life opening up, a new
Yeah.
relationship that is actually fulfilling and you're the queen versus, constantly feeling like in you're being served, right? As it's a mutually serving relationship and
Right.
beneficial relationship versus you continuously feeling you're like
Right.
server and you can never serve enough.
Yeah.
Leading into that and also telling people what you need them to do because people don't know. They're just gonna scroll. And we have like a 3-second attention span.
Yeah.
I think it's less than that now. But literally, like we're scrollers. So if we read a post, we're like, oh, that was nice. And go. If you don't
Yeah.
tell them, drop your email, raise your hand below or grab this
Yeah.
lead magnet here or sign up for my event I'm having here. Like they're
Right.
like just moving on, right? They're
Yeah.
keeping on. So that was a really good thing that you said. And I'm glad you said it. No matter what business you're in, you can put valuable content out there. Value matters. And you also got to tell people what the next step is because they can't read your mind and they're
Yes.
not going to think, oh, I want this. Where should I go? Should I Google it? They're not going to Google it. If it's not
Right.
there to grab it, then they've already moved on. So glad. Such good stuff because we don't talk about that enough here either in this
Yeah.
podcast. So are you specifically growing organically then?
For the most part.
Yeah.
For the most part. I do have some assistance here and there, but yeah, I have this funny thing about AI. I love AI and I've seen some really good use of it, but I don't think you can feel the soul in AI. And the soul is really important to what I do. So I have been a little bit more hesitant to completely embrace it. I do have some automation strategies in place. I'm certainly not just a cave woman, but I do like the organic approach.
Yeah. Well, the great thing about AI, especially for content, is it can literally help us just put out a guide of our pillars. What are the 4 things we want to consistently talk about? 4 to 6 things, branding, it can help with that, graphics,
Yeah.
things like that. Like those are the things that take all that time away for us if you're a solopreneur. And even if when you have help, it helps guide your people because your
Yeah.
people, chances are, if you have assistants, they're probably using it to some extent.
Yes.
But for you, especially with soulful women, they need feeling,
Yeah.
and you're only going to get so much feeling with chat.
Right.
We do content for our clients, and we always do, like I'm always going deeper and deeper and deeper. And then there's points where I'm like, okay, you're done. And now we get to bring the human back in and tweak it and write it because we've
Right.
got to bring in that humanality. And
Yeah.
so much of it sounds the same. And I flat out tell it, you sound just like every other post I'm seeing out there. Scratch this, let's take
Yeah.
this out, remove this, and then we get closer. But I think, like you said, it's a good guide and it doesn't replace the human piece of it. And for you with that feeling, you need that. If you're selling a widget, okay. But if you're selling, if you're helping people overcome trauma, move through a
Yeah.
process into a transformation, you need that feeling. I don't want to, I know we're running close to time. This has been such a good conversation. So thank you. If you could fix one thing, if I could give you a magic wand and you can wave it over one challenge or issue you're having right now and go poof and take it away, Dr. Sage, what would that be and why?
I think if you had a magical shame buster,
Okay.
so that
I would keep it
anyone
for
who
myself.
is feeling shame around what's happened to them, if that was suddenly gone, I think that we would just have to be hiring more staff, honestly. I
That
think
changed the
that
world.
absolutely, because that would enable people to reach out and to access the resources, use the services, and invest in themselves so
Yeah.
that they could just rise.
Yeah. Well, tell people, can you share with people how, with our listeners, how people can connect with you and learn more? Because I know there's people that want to, where they can go to find you. You said LinkedIn, but tell them how. All of it.
Yeah, yeah,
This is
yeah,
where we
yeah.
get to call to action. Where
Right.
tell them where to go.
Absolutely. So you can go to www.sagebreslin.com. That is like what we refer to as our parent site. For those who have experienced some sort of narcissistic abuse, www.therosesystem.com. That is specifically for you. And then www.sagewisdominstitute.com is our membership site. So if you want to purchase something like a mastermind or the Rose System or our daily inspiration, our Daily Pearls membership, where you get, for less, about right around $1 a day, you get an email in your inbox with some inspiration, a meditation, uh, amusing story. All of those things live there. So that is our courses live there, and that would be a way to reach us. And right now on the Rose System, we are having a retreat at the end of May, May 27th to 29th, called Embracing Your Queen. And, even if you're a little unsure about the word queen, if you want to go and be in a beach house right on the shore in San Diego, and meet other women who will not only see you, hear you, and get you, but will be so excited to know that there's another woman just like them who wants to rise above where they've been shoved by toxic people in their lives. That is also in the retreat section of the Rose System site.
Yeah, so definitely go connect with Dr. Sage. You can find her on LinkedIn. We'll have all of her links inside the show notes, so you can go there to grab them as well. But it's super easy, sagebreslin.com.
Yeah.
And also I have the other one up too, which is sagewisdominstitute.com. And Dr. Sage shared all the places you can find her. But again, we have all that in the show notes. So, and just know, for those of you who may not have been involved with it, a narcissistic relationship, but you're moving through something and you want to release trauma or stress and get more clarity, motivation, and passion back in your life, reach out to Dr. Sage, because she just doesn't focus on narcissism. Right. It's also, other traumas that we're moving through. We did kind of focus on that today, but I wanted to make it clear it's not just narcissistic relationships that she supports you with. And go check out that retreat for sure. So if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. We say hello. If you know of a woman that could use this message, hear from Dr. Sage today, please share this. This is how we're going to support Dr. Sage in getting her message out more and what she does, and support more women, as well as let the women be supported. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, thank you. So glad and so happy you're here. If you feel inclined to leave a review, we would love it, especially 5 stars. That helps the podcast platform push this episode out to more women to support them. And we want to help more women, both in their business and in their personal lives, in their personal relationships, because a woman deserves to be a queen in their life. Dr. Sage, before I let you go, is there anything that you'd like to share or say that I didn't get to ask you or we didn't touch on today?
I don't think so. We had a great conversation. We covered a lot. I would just like to remind the women listening that, if you've really kind of scoured through what's going on with you and you can't find anything you've done or said to hurt or abuse other people, then it's pretty likely that what's happening to you is not your fault. So please do reach out. I was trauma psychologist for 25 years and would be happy to assist in any way that I can.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time and for being here. Thank you all for listening to us today on the Business Growth Spotlight podcast. And I look forward, reach out to Dr. Sage, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.